and then into probably the greatest building ever constructed, you might call it that, St. Peter's Basilica. An amazing structure. Well, has it taken your breath away? This room is the grandest room in the world. It's the biggest church in the world, but really beyond that, it's got to be considered the grandest room in the world. Can anybody think of a more grand room that you've ever seen or ever heard of? Thank you. Proof positive. I rest my case. It's 692 feet long. That's long. That is super, super long. It's more than 2 football fields in length. And it contains 50 altars, 450 statues, 500 columns. And also it took 20 popes to build it. It was a long process. Many, many artists, every artist in Rome at that time was involved one way or the other in creating this church. Michelangelo was brought in the middle of this whole project to help refine the engineering and the architecture, and of course to design the dome. Masterwork by Michelangelo. Michelangelo was 72 years old when he was hired to begin his work in St. Peter's. He'd already been heavily involved, of course, in the Vatican with the Sistine ceiling and everything else. And then finally, who do you think was brought in to finish the decor in a high Baroque style? Thank you! This has got the fingerprints of Bernini all over it. The arrangement of the statues up there, the colored marbles, the final touches was Bernini. And then, as I say, hundreds of other artists, craftsmen, engineers, architects, they all collaborated on this greatest church ever built. Now, something that we can start with, now that we've finished with the overview, is to get a look at the Pietà. This is Michelangelo's early masterpiece, the Pietà. Michelangelo carved it when he was quite young. He was 25 years old. And of course, he was already well known. He was a child prodigy, a genius at a young age, and was important enough sculptor that he was given that commission, and it was to be for a tomb that was going to be in St. Peter's. And so he was brought down from Florence, and he carved it, and he finished it in just over a 1-year period. In the year 1500, he finished carving it, and it was unveiled to the public, and people were completely impressed, as we are today. They were blown away by it. And this is what established his reputation. It's always great to get different angles and to stop, not just keep walking and walking and walking. You want to walk a little bit and then stop and look around you, because especially here, this is so exquisitely designed that no matter where you look, it's going to be a rewarding view. No matter which angle you look at it from, there's really going to be something interesting to see. Well, especially here in this case, and it really helps when you get this explanation for it too. Here we have got, you see this archway. Now, Bernini designed this archway and a similar archway on the other side. And the reason for that is that we're now standing in the extended part of the church. That was the original front of the church when it was in the Greek cross plan. There was nothing here, that was the church. And it doesn't seem like that's possible, but yeah, you look at the length of that section of the nave, and it's actually equivalent to the width of the transept, as you'll see when we get up to the transept area. And so that was the church. It was much smaller, obviously, than we see today. Well, when they extended it, they had to link it all together. They had to stitch it visually together. So Bernini was given that task, and this was his solution for it, by creating this beautiful archway. And you'd never know that you're kind of walking from one building into another. It's all perfectly unified. And there's a whole bunch of domes as part of the church, not just the one big dome by Michelangelo, but a series of domes on these side chapels. Also, look at this painting over here. There's a whole series of huge paintings. Are they paintings? Not. It's not a painting. It's a mosaic. There are no paintings inside St. Peter's. Not one. They're all mosaics. And it's the tiniest of tiny stones that make it up. We'll have another closer look, but you can have a look at this one and we'll look at a few more. Originally they were paintings and they began to deteriorate over time, and the Vatican decided to replicate them as mosaics. Vatican is world famous for its mosaics. You can purchase a small mosaic from the Vatican shop or the galleries down the way. Really expensive. A little one would run you about $8,000. Just a little one. Oh, very expensive. It takes forever to make them. It's all natural stones, perfectly fit.